Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. My name is Mary Ann Monteleone, Vice President of Professional Development for the Long Island Board of Realtors. We'll let you settle in. We have a great Wednesday webinar for you today, and we have a great turnout on this beautiful summer Wednesday, and we're happy that you're with us. And we have Jay Gutenberg here with us, and I'm going to officially introduce him and read his bio. I don't want to miss anything, so we'll let you settle in. And welcome to LIBOR's Wednesday webinar. Jay, hi.
Good afternoon.
Okay, I'm going to introduce you, Jay. I'm going to read it. I hope you don't mind. We know each other a long time, but I don't want to miss anything.
Yeah, but don't age us, so don't tell them how long.
No, I'm not. Okay. So Jay Gutenberg is a graduate from Hofstra right here in Long Island with a bachelor's degree in business administration and immediately started his career in the insurance industry. Having joined LIBOR in 1988, he has been a non-practicing New York State licensed real estate salesperson with many realtor clients. Jay is a New York State certified instructor trainer for LIBOR. He specializes in the real estate industry, providing brokers and agents with errors and omissions insurance, personal and commercial insurance, and home warranties for over 35 years. He has sponsored many of LIBOR's chapters, including Women's Council, and he has attended all of the New York State conventions, and I think even the LIBOR conference. Jay has presented at other realtor associations, including HGAR, CYBOR, and Smart MLS. He contributes to his community and holds the position of Vice President for Manaville Chamber of Commerce. We're happy that he's here with us today. Today he talks about RPR CMA, your free LIBOR member tool that helps you to make helps your customers and clients make better and informed decisions. So without further delay, I turn it over to Jay. Welcome, Jay.
Marianne, pleasure. So good afternoon, folks. So today I'm going to talk about RPR. RPR is a data aggregate. It is a member benefit from the National Association of Realtors. I actually saw this program being presented to an MLS about 12 years ago in the state of Oregon when I was doing a presentation there. And a couple of years later, LIBOR had adopted this program, and I became certified in teaching it. I think it's one of the most fascinating data aggregate programs that is available for agents. One of its true member benefit features is that it is free to you. There will never be any charges for this program. It is funded by the 1.6 million realtors that are NAR members across the country. They collect data from all over the country. They put it in a program for you as well as all other agents to access. Please understand that RPR has a lot of data, way too much data for what you would want to potentially present to a buyer, seller, prospect. It doesn't matter whether you're a listing agent, a buying agent, a rental agent, a part-time agent, a secret agent, spy on your neighbor kind of agent. Either way, you can use some of the aspects of RPR. They aggregate data from the MLS, they aggregate data from public records, they aggregate data from school reports, and literally 250 resources throughout the country. RPR only stores and updates its data. So we're going to concentrate today on the CMA. RPR has got 2.5 CMA programs. The half is really a property refinement value. We know that there are plenty of websites that create property values for you, and some of which we don't like, some of which we think are incorrect. Some of them are challenging with regard that they are available to the public. RPR is not available to the general public. You need to have access through your NAR membership, which is your NERDS number, or through LIBOR, which is your through your MLS. You need to create an account with RPR if you do not have one. You may want to take out your cell phone now. I'm going to go to the bottom for a second. There is the 877 number. while I finish my intro, I would encourage you to put that telephone number in your phone as an RPR contact. They are open 24/7. They're located at the NAR office in Chicago. They are there to help and support you, whether it's logging in, whether it's completing a CMA, whether it's running a report, whether it's creating a marketplace, a farm area within your system. They will take you through the program if you get confused or you get lost. It is a very well-built program. It's been around for over 12 years. We recently went through its first refresh. So for those that have not logged in a few months, you'll notice that the icons have changed. We've expanded some of the technology aspect of it. It was a simple drop-down program. Now it's got many more icons that are more high-tech. And we've created a lot of shortcuts, so you don't have to necessarily go the long way. Plus, the Learning Center on demand is really impressive. Whatever page you're on, if you click Help on the top, it will give you information about that. So let's get started. What I'm going to do is I am on the home page right here. And that home page has my toolbar. We're going to concentrate today on what we call RPR's property values, especially in today's changing market. All know we're in a PPM market, what I call it, which is a pandemic pricing market. It's probably one of the strangest markets that we've seen in many years, certainly because of its origin. But the reality is the reflection of the values of homes and the reflection of sellers and buyers during this market, we need to understand and take advantage of, and RPR allows you to do that. So I'm going to pull up an address of a property. I'm going to make believe that one of my potential sellers has gotten in touch with me, has asked me to list their property. They are relocating either for work or for retirement, going south. They have a place down there to go to. So they have asked me to come and do a CMA presentation this Saturday. So what I would do is I would log into that property address. So I'm going to type that in. So 22 Bailey Lane in Manaville. And this is just a single family home in my market area near where I live. So it is a homeowner that lives here. He's lived here probably about 11 years. I know that he's made some improvements because I've seen contractors there when I've driven by, but I don't know much about him or the upgrades. So when we get that potential person on the phone who makes that inquiry, hey, I'm thinking about selling or I need to sell, you always have the ability to ask questions. And there's a handful of good questions that you want to ask, such as how many beds and how many bathrooms, and talk me up from the basement up. What have you done to the house? How many features are there? How many benefits? Is the basement finished? Is there a pool? Is there outstanding COs? Who the owners of the property are? Did you have a price in mind? All those great questions that you would ask. And as you ask those questions, you should obviously take mental and written notes. So in this scenario, the owner is named Michael, and Michael has informed me that he has made some significant improvements to the property over the last 11 years that he's lived there. He has put a new roof on the property. He has redone the master bathroom. He's redone the main floor bathroom. He has redone the kitchen, and he's redone and finished his basement. So he's informed me of all those improvements, and I've even asked approximately when did you do it and approximately how much was the value of that improvement. And I certainly asked if he had any outstanding COs, etc. So what RPR does is it gives you the ability, and you'll see the tabs on top: summary, history, charts, refined value, and CMA. So we're basically going to cover these three quickly and go right into the refined and the CMA. So RPR gives us a lot of data about the property. It tells us what RPR and its algorithms think the property is worth. You know, there are other companies that create market values for property, and most of them seem to be not as accurate. And I'm going to tell you that RPR's analytics are much more, and algorithms are much more accurate than anybody else. But keep in mind, it's based upon real data. So RPR updates its account approximately every 30 days. So this was recently updated on 5/19. So another week or so, we'll see another update. It has a value of this property of 664. And where does it come up with this value? You can actually click on the value and it will give you a properties used to create this RVM. It's sort of like a mini CMA, but it doesn't include what I consider our AI. Our AI is agent intelligence. So we have a lot of intelligence and we bring a lot to the table. So we know a lot about location. We know a lot about school districts. We know a lot about property values that are uh, located within a school, specific school district, located near commercial, near busy streets. We know that properties have different values when they're tree lined, located on tree-lined streets. We also know that there's a differential in property values that are properties that have double yellow lines, or properties that are on a cul-de-sac, or properties that are backed up to pine barrens, or one way in, one way out. So we know a lot about properties that an IT product really just doesn't understand. So the system sort of gives you an idea based upon its immediate map area of what this property is worth. And once again, this is based on the subject, and I'm going to go back out. And once again, that adjusts every month. We have two property values for property. One is an RVM and one is an AVM. And what I want you to understand there is, and we tell you when you click on the eye what the difference is. When you see a property value with an AVM on top of it, that means there's not a lot of properties that are similar for us to make it really, I don't want to say accurate or less accurate, but just identifying that there's less properties there. You also have a confidence score. So you may see an AVM, and the way I want you to remember that is A is the beginning of the alphabet. So think of it as very few properties around that. It may be only one or two that sold, and the value that RPR has assigned may be spot on, may be really accurate, but once again, we're not really confident because there's only one or two properties that may have been sold as compared to 4, 5, or 6 properties. So you also have to look at the confidence score as well. So the tools that RPR gives you give you the ability to adjust the value of this A or RVM, the property value. Remember, what you do in your RPR account stays in your RPR account. No other agent sees it. So, like the conversation that I had with the seller, Michael, he informed me that he made some significant improvements, and I took those notes as I scrolled down. I may have made some adjustments here. For example, I could have made some changes if there were from what Public Records has. And there were two changes that I made. One, it is not a Cape Cod style house that Public Record had. It is a Victorian, and the basement, I included the word finished. Those are the only two edits that I've made in my account. I've also taken some notes that he put a new kitchen in, approximately when, and the value, bath, roof, and a basement. So my first task is going to be, in preparation for the CMA presentation on Saturday, is to literally refine the property value. So I would click on either the property value, refined value tab here, or the refined value here. The history and charts are basically a lot of the data that's on the home page. So you have basic facts, you have public information, any improvements, you have school districts, you have an AARP livable index, which is not very important for someone that's selling, but maybe for someone that's buying. Exterior features, location descriptions, owners' names. So maybe you see 2 or 3 owners' names here, and you may want to question it. The legal description of the property, tax information, deed information, and sometimes we could even pull mortgage information so you can see what's going on. If we have access to that data, we then are able to pull it and include it. The second 2 tabs would be the history and the charts, and they're basically the same data but in historical form. So we give you values back showing either increases or decreasing trends. We show you the last 10 years worth of taxes and some charts and graphs to substantiate a lot of the data. The goal of RPR is to give you data so that you can customize it to your particular needs and to generate reports, whether it's a CMA, whether it's a property flyer, whether it's a property report, whether you're hosting an open house and people walk in, instead of handing them a one-page flyer, you can actually text or email them a 7-page customized report that you've already pre-generated. Maybe it's your listing, maybe you're hosting it for another agent in your office, but the goal there is to get the information quickly and customizable to the particular person. Maybe they have questions about the taxes or about the school district or something relating to the area. You can pull up that information pretty easily and then get it to where it's got to go. RPR also has a mobile platform. We're going to spend the CMA hour that we have here on the desktop version, but everything that you do in the desktop version, you can also do in the mobile platform. So if you've never logged into RPR Mobile, go to the App Store, download it, and whatever you do in one account will sync to the other account. So they're interchangeable whichever direction you're going in. You do need to create a password. If you go through the MLS, sometimes there's no password needed, but when you go through the mobile device, you're definitely going to be required to set up a password, and that will be your password that you can use through any device. You can sync up to 5 different devices with RPR. Now that we determined that we're going to adjust and refine the value of this property in preparation for our CMA, which is the next tabs over, we're going to click on Refine Value. We're going to look at all of the aspects of it. So the beds and the baths and the square foot all came from public records and accurate, so we're leaving it. What we are going to change in this scenario is the refined value. So we also have a lot of hyperlinks, which give you, if you click on it, where we get some of the data and how we use the information from other resources to help generate property values. So in this case, we're using information from Hanley Wood, which is the nation's leading largest supplier of construction data. They do it for HGTV and This Old House and services like that. So in this example, we have made some significant improvements, so we're going to include them. So we'll start at the top, and we did a bathroom remodeling, and you have some choices there, and you can see what the choices are, either upscale or mid-range. I'm just going to go through this because we don't have that much time, and I'm going to make up the dates that we did these improvements, just so you have an idea of the navigation and the skills that are needed. So we're going to put a value of that main bathroom, which was $20,000. And we're going to add that. And then we also did a second bathroom. That was a smaller bathroom. Did that a couple of years ago. And that was $12,000. And we added an extensive kitchen. And let's make believe we did that right before the winter. And we spent $40,000 on a brand new kitchen. And we also added a basement and a roof. So basement remodel. And we did that right before the winter as well. And we spent $20,000 on that finishing, remodeling. And we also need to include our roof. So you can see, and there's places to put, if you don't see the category here, you can create your own category. And we did this right after the July 4th weekend. And that was 9,000. And we hit add. So you can see that we've added almost $50,000 in today's value based upon depreciation, based upon some of these home improvements. So the value now of our property, all right, is the $664 that RPR has assigned and the $48,000 that we added. So when we went to our summary page, when we got our initial phone call, or maybe after we took our information and we went to the actual property, and maybe you're familiar with the area, or you do a drive-by between now and then, and you look up some information, you know sort of you have an idea through your AI, agent intelligence, of what that property is probably worth. Meaning, and certainly in this PPM market, all statistical bets are off based upon supply and demand and other factors. But we sort of have an idea or a range of where we think that house should come in. So that being said, you want to be able to, and you now have a tool to be able to refine the value based upon that. And then we're going to validate that by doing an actual CMA. Because in this scenario, for example, this house next door, which is identical in its structure, this house, which is next door, built the same year, same builder, everything's the same, except this house has never had a renovation. There's a different porch configuration from the builder, so that was only a $10,000 difference, but the reality is the house and its structure is identical and no improvements, nothing. So the value of this house is going to be a lot less than certainly the value of this house. And there is for a few reasons. In addition, we know we can look and see overhead view. We can also see that this house has got no neighbor behind, no neighbor on one side, so that creates some value. It is on a cul-de-sac, okay? There's no neighbor on an angle, it's on a little bit of a hill. So we sort of know that from our AI. And if we're unfamiliar with an area, that's where you can use these tools.
Jay, we have a question.
Great.
Okay, just one question. Can you confirm that when you make changes, other agents cannot see those changes?
Yeah, so the answer is whatever you do in your RPR account stays in your RPR account. There is not one piece of information that you add to your RPR account that will ever be seen by any other agent or only by the RPR company. If you call up and you give them permission to look in your account or you're challenged with some navigation and you want them to look at, they can actually see what you're doing because they'll log in when you're on the phone. But other than that, you can't. And because, once again, we're going to be going through this CMA for another 40 minutes, I would encourage you to ask questions as they come up as opposed to waiting, so this way we don't have to go back. And that was a good question. We're up to $713 in its refined value. Now, what I failed to tell you so far was, as an agent, or if I were a real active agent, and as you heard from my bio, I'm an inactive agent, but I would best guess, and I navigate in this property all the time in all my classes for the last 8 years, so I'm very familiar with this neighborhood, and I also live there in that neighborhood, so I'm very familiar with it. That this house would probably list today for somewhere around 770, which means it may come in as a CMA around that area, and it may sell for a fraction bit higher depending on supply and demand. And so keep that in the back of your mind as we navigate to get to and to validate some of those numbers. So we're up to 713 at this point. We've added some improvements that the homeowner noticed, and maybe we didn't have enough time to even ask the questions. Maybe we go to the property and we have done some preliminary work and you took a tour of the property and you're like, hang on, Michael, this is great job, great additions and alterations. Give me a few minutes. I just want to update my account, and you can quickly make these significant changes on your system and then even redo the CMA that'll follow in the next task. So we have all that information. I'm going to go back to the refined value. I'm going to talk about another section here. So there's a section on about this data, needed home improvement. So maybe you go to a property, and I'm going to stay true to my example here, and maybe I pull up to the property, or I did a drive-by prior to the listing appointment, and I noticed that the driveway is in dire need of replacement. I mean, it's unrepairable, it's asphalt, it's shredded apart. So I may put in here a needed home improvement, and I write driveway and I put a value in there. So if I do that, and I'd have to have some form of an idea, and I do because I live not far, and driveways in that area are about 7,000 to replace with asphalt. And I would add it, and it would take away the value. So you can see up here that I now have 706 because I've minus. So if you get to a house that is in dire need of TLC, and the kitchen needs to be replaced, the bathrooms, the roof is sagging, the floors are uneven, whether it's shingles or doors or whatever the case may be, you may take the value that RPR comes up with and may have to make some adjustments because the homeowner has done no improvements, no maintenance over the last 30, 40, 50 years. So there may be a decrease in value. So my point is you can either go higher or lower depending on the particular condition of the property. So those are two modules that you can use to adjust the value. Third one is what I call the AI. This is the agent intelligence one. So refine value. I can refine the value based upon a lot of things: market conditions, the exterior, the interior condition, the lot size, the view, the interior. So let's look at this property again because some of the statistics on the homepage are impressive. So if I go to that 22 Bailey, I can see that in the last month, this property went up 30,000. Now, once again, that's technically a month and change, so almost 2 months. But over the last 12 months, the property value has increased 16%. Okay. Now, once again, this pandemic PPM market is changing very quick by the day. So you need to account for that. We also have a nice little video here that you can watch that basically tells you how to inform your potential buyers and sellers of the changing markets. And we update that a lot as well. So you would just click on this and watch the video. So my point is, in Manorville, in this immediate area regarding this property has gone up in value, and over the year it's good. So I'm going to go back to my refined value, and especially if you didn't know anything about the market, well, how are the local market conditions doing? Well, certainly above average because they've increased both by property and monthly and by yearly. So I'm going to increase it by 1. How is the exterior, the condition of the property? Well, it's above average. It's all in place, the gutters, the siding, the shingles. So we're going to adjust that. The interior, once I look inside and say, wow, it's really maintained and there's nice flooring and tray ceilings and crown moldings and other aspects that would give me that value. How's the lot size? Well, the lot size is probably a little bit better than most, even though it's pretty equal to most of the other properties, but there's no neighbor behind, no neighbor on the side, so the appearance is a little bit bigger. And once again, this is all subjective. How is our view? Well, the property is on a little bit of a hill, no neighbor to the angle, no neighbor across the street on an angle, no neighbor next to us, so the view from the porch is really nice. And the privacy, well, once again, no neighbor behind, no neighbor on side, setback looks good. If you can see, I've increased this property value by about 43,000. So now we're up to 750. I'm still shy about my 20,000 because I said I think it's going to come in about 720. And I've got agents that have told me that they've done this with their homeowners, and they said, well, let's talk about pricing. And based upon the market, we know the market's going up and the interior and condition. So you can get them involved if you need to at the time of the CMA presentation. Prior to, we sort of have an idea, and you'll get to know and be familiar that these each have a value. So if I go privacy over 142 becomes 50. So about 8,000 on this one. There's about 11,000 jump on that one. There's about a 6,000 jump on this one. There's about a 6,000 jump on this, and this. So if I need to come up with another value, I can easily, once again, be subjective and I can pick one. If I increase the view, because I think that's really important, and I know that the interior of the house is spectacular because of all the home improvements. So I would go to the interior and increase it. And based upon those numbers, I'm at my 766 number, and I'm happy with that number. Okay, and I can once again make any adjustments I need, but if that's the number I'm comfortable with, I'm going to be happy with that. And now I can do what the program is designed for us to do, which is create a report. I can click on here and create a report. Now remember, this is not a CMA report. This is just a refined value report. We're going to do the CMA in a few minutes. So I click on create a report. And I told you that RPR gives you a lot of information, way too much for you to keep giving out to potential buyers and sellers. But there is important information, especially all of the work that we just did for us to convey to that particular potential seller, or maybe it's a call. I don't want you to come by, but can you send me some information about my house, what my house is worth? Yes, I can. Can you tell me what improvements have you made? How many beds and baths? And you can use this as a sort of a incubation or a solicitation report, because it's basically a property value by you. And these reports are customizable. So the data in this report, and you can actually click on the plus sign, you'll see the system gives you the ability to add custom pages. So for example, if this was for confirming an appointment, I can put in the date and time of the appointment. If it was a listed property and maybe a buyer called me up and said, hey Jay, I'm interested in seeing the property, I would put the date and time and send them a property report. Here are all of the, I can even put, here's another sample that I use. I use a real property agent, which is a bio about myself or my company, and maybe the reviews from all the different websites on there. So I'll show you that as well. And I can click on them. You can add up to 5 custom pages to any report. Here are all the elements of the report. You noticed I have some unchecked from my last presentation. So in reality, I'm going to run with that one for now and show it to you first, because that's the one that I would probably use in dealing with or presenting to a potential seller. That report's being generated as we speak. In the interim, I'm going to reset, which generates all of the data that RPR gives in the report. And once again, understand your potential client and prospect. It is a seller. You don't need to send them information about the school. You don't need to send them information about their mortgage records. They know they're looking to move. They're not looking to buy. So you would have to actually look at all of the components and decide which ones you would want to include and which ones you would not want to include. So once you click Run Report, you'll notice that, and that doorbell means the report is being generated and is done. So this is the first report, probably 14 pages long, a few custom pages about me, fake production. This is not me. I do not operate in the real estate environment. But here's where the actual report starts. And it says what the value that realtors see, 664, and our refined value. So a presentation that I would make would be Mr., or in this case, Mr. Seller, the real estate community sees the value of your property at 665. But based upon all of your changes, based upon all of your improvements, we've come up with a value of 766. There's a blank space here. When we do the CMA next, this is where the CMA number is going to be. So you can use either all 3 numbers, or you can just use the CMA number. I have agents that just use the refined number as a CMA number. So once again, because it's based upon this number, which was basically generated from the transactions that were very close to the property. So my point is RPR gives you a lot of data for you to customize it in the way you want. And every page here, you'll see basic facts, the notes we took. You can include or exclude, and I'll show you how to do that. You want to include your way how you came up with your numbers, your sliding scale, the data, the driveway that was needed, property notes, a little too many. I'd probably exclude some of these. My reviews if I was a real agent. So once again, I'm going to go back to the actual RPR account, and I would exclude, eliminate, remove, for example, the ARP index, refined, well, the refined value I want. There's no CMAs yet, so I didn't do any comps. Let's look at this one. This is the full blown out report, 33 pages. This is the one that has all the data. And once again, it's a lot of data that we didn't discuss because it didn't pertain to the CMA curriculums this afternoon. But you'll see, for example, this is all the stuff that we did, but there's no CMA data attached, property history values over the last few years, back tax information, mortgage records, things that I'm not going to want to give to a potential seller or a buyer at this time. There are heat maps, flood zone information, property values, charts and graphs, how many distressed properties are located near the property, things that are just not pertaining to this presentation, neighborhood information and charts. RPR has got a wealth of information, and once again, as I said before, too much. So you're going to weed out all these graphs and charts, get it down to a 5-page report, and use that for your defined value. All right. So let's go back and let's start our CMA. So we have the ability once again to remove, eliminate all of the data that you do not want to show because it's a seller, they're moving out, they don't really care about the neighborhood demographics, and you would just rerun that report. Each time you run a report, it shows you that 3 for the day. If you click on the word reports, you can see which ones they are. A lot of ways to navigate. I'm going to go back to my subject property by going home to the home page, pull up the property again. You notice I haven't hit a save button yet. The program is written very well, so you don't lose your data. Wherever you stop and then redirect, you come back, it's all there. So we sort of covered the summary, the history, the graphs, the refined value. Now we're going to conclude with our CMA program. So RPR offers 2 CMAs. They offer a comparative analysis platform and a sales comparison analysis platform. There's a little video here that basically shows you what, explains to you what the difference is. I'm going to explain it to you, but if you need to be refreshed, it's here. The difference between these two is, and I want you to remember it the same as an AVM and an RVM. A was the beginning of the alphabet, not a lot of data. S, like R, at the end of the alphabet, a lot of data. Our comparative analysis is our basic CMA platform. It's the one that 99.9% of all the agents are going to use. The sales comparison analysis is a more detailed evaluation. It is actually a appraisal style platform CMA. I've had agents that have challenged appraisals, or have taken an appraisal and have inputted here to see where they're going with it, where they determine the values. I'll explain it to you. The platform, let's look at that report just to show you that it was the revised one with half the amount of data, so it generates there. I'm going to go back, and once again, you notice I didn't lose where I am. The sales comparison analysis is a 5-step process, 1 through 5. The sales comparison analysis is the same. The difference is number 3. So 1, 2, 4, and 5 are the same. I've got agents that have told me that they like to use both platforms, even though they're not an appraiser. I will show you how to do that today. It will come up with a different value, but sometimes they like to average it out. They present it to the potential seller. Hey, I've done a CMA with 2 different platforms. One came in at 665, one came in at 670, and you know, let them pick and choose, of course, and you can negotiate. So I'm going to navigate and teach you how to do the CMA, the basic one, and then I'm going to review after that the more analytical appraisal style one. Step 1, confirm home facts, easiest step there is. It gives you all the data that is in the RPR account. If you made any changes, it would also appear there. So we made those 2 changes. And we're going to hit confirm facts. It lets you get to step number 2, and that's where we're going to spend more time. And this is what I love about RPR. I think the way that it searches for comps makes it one of the best CMA platforms that are out there. You click find comps, step number 2. The system is telling you, here's your subject property. You can add a known property if you know of one. Single family house is what we're looking for. Show all. I like to show all in my demonstrations because I want to pull every property that is available for me to use in my CMA, even though I may not use it. As I scroll down, I have the ability to go within 6 months or any other time frame. Okay. Date range if I choose. Here's where I'm going to make some edits, beds and baths, so I want to make sure they're correct. So let's use 4 and 2 for this example. Living square feet. Keep in mind that as of now, our MLS does not require us to put living square feet in there. So if I left it in there, watch what happens to my results. As I scroll down and hit search, I will get 8 sold properties. If I alter, modify, exclude, remove, which I encourage you all to do because the system is looking for data between these 2 square footage. So if there's a listing with no data there as of now, it's going to not pull. So if I hit search now, instead of 8, I got 12. So I would encourage you to modify that every time you do a CMA. That being said, now I have 12 properties to choose that I can include in my CMA. The star here is the ones that RPR used in its analytics of coming up with its AVM or RVM. Maybe I would look at them first and include them. And I'm going to actually do this. I'm going to run through and pick the ones that I want to include in my CMA, even though this one I may want to include, but I didn't pick. It wasn't picked because it may have been a little too far away from the other property. But in Manorville, it's 10 miles almost. So the reality is I have the ability to go 10 miles away and still count as a legitimate property for my CMA. So if I wanted to select and use any of these ones that RPR did not use, I certainly can, and I would just click on them. Most of these properties I know, I'm including them, and I'll show you as we continue with the process. This one I would not. It's a small house a little further away, but I don't want to include that. And I would scroll down, and I'm not happy with any of the others. So what I would do is I'd search for more comps, and here's how you do that. You now have the ability to draw a shape. So if I go to the box, radius, or polygon, and I expand my map a little bit, I can go, still staying in Manorville and drawing my arts and crafts, and go there and search that area. I'll probably triple my data. So I'm up to 36 properties. Now I can choose. You see the ones that I've already selected are there, but now I'll have much more properties to choose from, and I would look down and pick others that I may want to include. And I'm basically doing this randomly. I'm familiar with the properties, not doing it for 100% accuracy, because you know it would take time to look at them, see which benefits and features and so on. But I do this literally every week on the same property, so I'm very familiar. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 properties, I think 6 in my for my CMA. I just want to show you another way to shop for properties. You can go to geography. A lot of agents like within a zip code. Search the area, and instead of 33, now I get 48. You just have to watch school districts and so on. But once again, you have the ability to pull properties from the 48 choices in the zip code, or what a lot of the agents love. Here's another choice, school district. Search the area. 61 properties, pretty much most of which would probably work for me. There are a couple of houses in the school district that are in different towns, so I'd have to watch that. But once again, another way for you to shop for properties to use in your CMA choices. All right, so I'm happy with the choices that I made. However, I may have selected them from any one of these modified searches, either down here or up here. Once I'm happy with my property, I hit update. It created a value for me instantly based upon the comps that I selected. I'm up to 718. But I sort of told you that that sounds a little shy. Somewhere needed to be somewhere around the 760 number. So I'm shy about 42,000, give or take. And let's see how we would make up that adjustment. Make adjustments, number 3. I click make adjustments. And now you would look at the 5 comps that I selected, and you would say, how does this property compare to my subject? How does this property compare to my subject? And the system gives you a sliding scale. So, and I'm going to stay true to this example and stay true to the value so you get a real accurate idea. This house is very close to my subject property. It's around the corner. It's identical. It's got a lot of upgrades. I was actually in this house many times. This house I know is a lot worse. So if I go over a little bit, and you can see that I made an adjustment by sliding the scale, and I created $12,000 worth of value. This house, once again, also probably not as good. Not been in it, but trust me on the navigation. So I'm up on that one. Then I go to my page 2, and I would look at the properties here and adjust them accordingly. This one I'm going to go over just one. And let's see what our number is now. Up about 41,000 based on my adjustments, and that's all I did. If I click update, the system very close to my 760. Okay. If I wanted to go back and edit it just to get in excess. If I slid one of these over one more, and I'd probably be, would stay fairly accurate because that's, I would do this one. Actually, I would probably do this one. And let's see. So there's my 766. I can edit that number. It's a weird number. I can edit it to either up or down. So if I did, let's say 765, and if I want to put a range in, I can, 760 to 770. I like to tell agents, use the numbers that came up, but when it comes to the edit, you copy this number, edit, put that number in here, and put your range in there. So 765, whoops, to 770, and you know where they're going to go with that number. So you have that ability. You click on save. You now click create report, which is going to create your CMA. This CMA is being created in the seller's report. It's a property report with all of the CMA data attached to it. So there are 8 reports in RPR. The 2 we're going to talk about today are the seller's report for the basic CMA, the evaluation workbook that we're going to do in a few minutes, and the property report was the generic one that we pulled up for every property. So if I look at the sample of, I don't want to put any custom pages in for this one, or maybe I do. Maybe I want to put something about myself or about my company. I can. I would look here. I'm going to click on reset all, and this is going to give you all the data. Now, when I'm doing a CMA, I probably don't want to remind this homeowner about his mortgage at this time, or maybe there was a divorce or there was a refinance or whatever the case may be. So I would look at all of these components because there's a lot of data here. They are moving away from this area. They do not really care about the active listings that are not part of the CMA because maybe they're 200,000 or 300,000. So I would edit all of this out and just use it. So I like to start from bottom up about RPR because this thing is, presentation is good. Seller proceeds, if I want to include recommended pricing, refined value, comp analysis is good. I'm going to get rid of all this data that does not pertain to the property that I'm working with. This one doesn't either. Comps I'm going to leave. My market health chart, no. Market activity, yes. My property history, no. My sales and financial activity, we don't care what the price was 5 years ago. You'll get to be familiar with each of these icons, okay? So when you're familiar with them, you can include or exclude them. All right, everything else looks to be, this is not important. Refined value is, property photos, so that is fine by me. I'm going to run that report. While that CMA is being generated, which takes approximately 2 minutes, I'm going to always reset so I don't get messed up on my next presentation. And I'm going to go back to the subject property, and I'm going to go back a different way now. You can go back scrolling up, and you have the breadcrumb line here. All the reports that you generate and all the searches stay in RPR for 30 straight days. They're time, date, and stamp, so you don't have to delete them or whatever. If you want to save them for longer, you can by saving them, but anything that you run will purge itself out. Tells you that there's 2 minutes remaining. We have 4 reports that we ran. I'm going to go back to the subject property, and I'm going to conclude with the other CMA product. Clicking on CMA, dropping it down to the sales comparison analysis, a more detailed analytical CMA. If I click on it, notice the same 5 steps. The data is still here. Sales comparison analysis. It is asking me if I'm an appraiser. If I am a licensed appraiser, I can put my license and it'll be registered as a licensed appraisal. So for this example, skip the step because I am not. The data clears. 5 steps again. Let's start with step number 1, confirm facts. Same scenario here. I've only made 2 changes, Victorian and finished. Update, good. step number 2. I'm going to shop for my comps, same options. Just because of time restraints, do I want to use the same comps I selected before? The answer is yes, and you knew how I got them. I went to the edit, I'll show you, but I'm going to use the same for now. I'll look at that report in a second. So we did the five same comps, all right? And we went through this process either down here and or up here, just as a reminder. All right, so we're on step number 2. We're happy with the 5 that we use, which is identical. And we're going to see how far we're off, which will be significant. I will show you. Step number 3. The other platform gave you the ability to do better, worse for each of the properties as compared to the subject. Here, you actually get to make monetary adjustments just like an appraiser does. So there is and no more sliding scale. Yes, better, worse. Does not exist. You'd have to look at each of these components, evaluate what it is, put dollar values in, which is what an appraiser does, which is why an appraisal takes hours. There's also some questions here that you may not know. Quality of construction, different codes. You can look them up. Conditions, C1 through C6, you can look them up. But you can still use this platform with the limited AI we know about appraisals. So I haven't made any changes. I'm going to make believe I know nothing about appraisals. I'm happy with this 5 that we selected. They're good. Now, it's coming up with 707, but I am shy a lot. I'm still shy about 60,000, give or take, 50-something thousand. So what I can do is, using this platform, even without using the analytics, if I didn't, you notice here the system told me that I've used 5 properties. If I click edit, it's 100% value. 5 divided by 100% is 20% each. And I'm going to exaggerate just to get through this example because we only have a few minutes left, but I know for a fact that this property is very much similar to my property that I'm doing. So instead of 20% of its weighted value, I'm going to make it 80%. And I want to show you that when I adjust this, because I need to get to 100%, how that price deviates. There you go. I'm up to my 761. I'm happy with that number. Because what I did was, like an appraiser does, if there was a property that sold 2 doors down, let's say, and it was the exact same house, but it was a zombie house, it needed a lot of work, it was a short sale, foreclosure, whatever, and it had a value of like 300,000, something way ridiculous, an appraiser is required to put it in the appraisal and put a 0 weighted value. So what we just did was we took the property that was the most similar to it and weighted it the highest value in its comparison, in its pricing. So I'm happy with that number. I hit apply and close. I hit update. And then you'll go to step number 4 and 5, which is basically the same. You can edit. I like to copy that number because I like to use the accurate numbers. And then if I wanted to put a range in there, I certainly could. For this example, I'll leave it out so I can show you the difference. And if I wanted to, since I used the same number on the other one, I'll round this down a little bit to 765 just to show you the difference. And I'll hit save and I'll hit create report. And now I will show you the 2 reports that we just generated. Now the lengthy CMA generates itself in the evaluation workbook. The basic Realtor CMA, seller's report, evaluation workbook. A lot more detail, a lot more analytics. Once again, RPR generates a lot of different reports. You should be familiar with all of them. And LIBOR provides a lot of CE credits. I teach most of them for RPR, so I would encourage you to go and sign up and you'll learn a lot more about RPR. It takes approximately 5-hour learning curve, so 3 3/4 hours and an hour of your own time and another hour on the mobile, and you should be an expert. I'm going to hit run the report. I'm then going to go to my report tab, look at the seller's report that we ran, and then we're going to look at the evaluation workbook, and then we'll take questions and answers, and then we'll be respectful of our hour that we were allocating for this presentation. So I am now going to go to that report, list of all my 30 reports that I've ran the last 30 days, here it is. I click it, seller's report, 24-page report, a little bit about me, no big deal, all fluff. Here's where the actual report comes in. And what this report does is it says, RPR has given a value of 664 based upon the refined value. Look how close we were. We actually came extremely close. The refined value based upon CMAs in the marketplace, this is where I think the house should be priced. Now, some agents like to only include the CMA number. You can eliminate these two. Or maybe this one in the CMA. If there's no refinements, maybe this house was 20 years old and there were no true improvements done on the property. So the homeowner said, no, I've done nothing. We bought it 10 years ago and it was really nice then and it's still nice now. So we can't really make any true refinements except the market condition one we can. We just can't add any improvements because once again, nothing was done. So you can include or exclude that number. And the way you would adjust that would be, you would go to the actual report. So if I click on here, right down to the actual seller's report or the property report, either of the two, and click sample. And I want to exclude something, I can go to the, right here, suppress, eliminate, remove the subject value property. That's the one that RPR has assigned. Suppress the estimate value. So if I don't want to show the refined value, so these three values are important. So if you don't want to include them, so if I rerun that report, which I'll show you, it'll be minus that number. Let's look at the second CMA that we did. See, it's minus the number, doesn't include it. It only has the 765 and the 664. So you have the ability, and once again, all the other data is there. It's whatever you chose to put in it. You can make this report 3 pages, 5 pages. You can, don't use the side-by-sides. I happen to like the side-by-sides. I think they're important. So, whether you use the pictures and so on. But you can customize this, and I'll show you that. And then the way you customize your reports, in addition to picking and choosing what components and elements here, is you would go right up to the right side where it says Manage Custom Pages. And you can exclude or include custom pages in there. All you do is go to add another custom page, go to your computer and download any PDF and add it to that. And we're waiting for this one, finalizing, and then we'll look at it, and then we'll be, any questions? So let's open it up to any questions that you have. Marianne, has anything come in? Quiet? You still there? All right, I see 2 participants have raised hands. Let me see if I can pull those questions up. Probably Marianne is on a call. Let's see. Find those questions. Okay, let's look at that report and then I'll get to that. So here is that last report that we generated. Custom pages. And once again, I removed the estimate value that RPR came because it was way too low and we don't want to use it. So depending on the market and what the presentation is, you can just use CMA numbers, you can just use refined values, you have the choice, and the rest of it I left the same. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Marianne. Any questions that we got?
Let's see. How accurate would you say RPR is? The property you were doing, you are familiar with. Most time we are not.
So let's talk about that. And that's a great question in today's market. So this 664, I've been navigating in this property for literally 8 years, since I've been at least 8 years. And I will tell you, and then when I do my classes, I mean, we pull properties from the audience and the agents that have listings and so on. And up a year and a half and prior, I would say the numbers were really, really close and accurate. What I mean by that, I've seen them $200 apart on a $600,000 property. On a $2 million property, I've seen them as close as, $1,000 apart from the listing price or the selling price versus the RVM price, RPR's RVM price. But in the last 18 months, because of what's going on, you will see that pretty much every property is going to be off. It's going to be greater. If you pull up every listing in your office, I guarantee you, unless it's a really dilapidated property, that the RVM is going to now be less, which is accurate, and you can understand it because this data is based upon what I would consider a month plus 5 prior to that. So it's very hard when the market levels out. And once again, the presentations that I made a year and a half and prior, very, very accurate. So today you have to understand that this RVM or AVM needs to be adjusted based upon market conditions. Forget about the fact that there were some upgrades on this house. Let's make believe it wasn't. You know that in most areas, especially as we go to the suburbs and travel out east, that property values have been going for higher than expected. So the answer is, in this market, you need to make yourself aware of that and make your homeowners aware that, hey, this is what the market is based upon its true analytics, because we identify where it came up with this value. This is real numbers. But once again, look at the dates of when these things closed. Okay? 6 months plus. So my answer to it is our algorithms to come up with our data is better. We know what sold, when it sold, how long it took, what was the difference between the sale and the listing price. What we don't know, what any non-analytical tool is going to know, is your AI. And what our AI is today is market condition, locations, and our PPM marketing.
Great.
Any other questions?
Let's see. Do we have another one? Someone said, no questions, just need to look at the video again and work on things myself. So the video.
So the videos, I would encourage you to, YouTube has got a great source of videos. There's one narrated by an agent employee of RPR out of Arizona. Her name is Jo Teeter, Teeter. She is the best instructor for mobile RPR video, hands-on. You follow along with your phone. She takes you through the entire step. It's about an hour long. You navigate through that. You'll be an expert. YouTube's got a lot of data from us, as well as our learning center. You go to the bottom and click on our from the home page, and you get to our videos and tutorials, which is down here on demand training. But I found that YouTube also has a lot of agents throughout the country and instructors like myself that have added a lot. So I would encourage you to go there, as well as the actual program itself.
Okay, and we have a question. Who puts the value in?
So RPR's analytics does it. Their algorithms generate it. So, for example, here's one. I was in class the other day. This was a property, I believe. This was for sale. Let me see if it's the right one. So, yeah. So look at this. This is a property for sale, okay, in Rockaway. It was my last class a couple days ago. The RVM was $529, but the house was totally redone. Totally, like gutted, the whole thing. So there was, ballpark $200,000-$300,000 worth of additions and alterations done to this property, which is why the list price was so high. But without validating and justifying, you wouldn't know. So the answer is RPRs, through its analytics and its data, generates this number. Obviously, list price is generated by the agent. So if I were working with a buyer and they said, well, there's a property in East Rockaway, I noticed it's for sale, $825. Well, what do? I go to RPR, I look it up, and I say, wow, only $529. Well, where are they getting this data from? So I would look at all of these properties that it generated its data from, and then look at them and say to my potential buyer, well, listen, I can justify, $300,000 because there was $280,000 of renovations put into this house. So maybe we'll, instead of offering the 825, maybe we'll offer 800. But what I did was I took this number, I validated and justified it based upon all of the improvements and all the additions and alterations. So I know that, but once again, this house was totally redone, etc. So the answer is we come up with this number based upon the analytics. We give you the tools to adjust this number because, once again, depending on the market, depending on the condition, If this house was on the waterfront in East Rockaway, you need to add another 150,000 probably, if not more, to the list price. But RPR doesn't understand waterfront, deep canal, tree-lined streets, school districts, condition, only the analytics. That's where you guys come in. So we give you the tools to refine the value and add all those great factors to justify and validate some of the values that are there.
Mhm. Okay.
Any
Um, so, how accurate is it for comparing to FHA appraisals?
So it should be really accurate because the FHA, as well as all the appraisal forms, use the same guidelines. Our CMA was built by appraisers. So when you go to a property and you go to that second CMA data field, that should be identical to every other CMA, whether it's FHA or not. So my answer to that question would be, it should be really, really close.
Mhm. And how far back should we go on a CMA?
So I'm going to add to that question. Number one, how far back and how many pieces of data and what forms of data? So do I use solds? Do I use pendings? Do I use expireds? Do I use withdrawn? My answer to that question is yes, I think you should, as long as you can justify and validate the data. So there's a reason why it expired. There's a reason why it was withdrawn. If you know that reason and need to use it and can use it in your presentation, certainly you should. Same thing true of your um, sold properties. Some properties sold more. Why? It's on the market 280 days due to a divorce, due to a short sale, due to a problem, due to an outstanding CO, whatever the case may be. And understand, we just are exiting a very strange marketplace. But the traditional guidelines, other than the last 18 months, were, you know, uh, 6 months back. And once again, I like to use single digits. I think if you go above 10 properties, that's not good. And the combination would be validating the majority of them would be properties that were sold, some properties that were on the market, maybe one or two that expired or withdrawn. That would be and that's the feedback that I get from agents all the time.
Okay, that's good information. Um, and then I think the last question is, can I get a report for rentals?
Yes, you can pull up rentals by going to the couple ways, through the search or through the home. So if you wanted to pull up rentals, there are many fields here, right here, for sale, for rent, and you can pull up all the data for that and you can extract it. And we do cover that in the RPR classes that we do for LIBOR for the CE credit. So the reality is, let's say it was Garden City. I wanted to go quickly, 11530, and I can put in rentals and it will pull up all the ones that are there.
Oh, that's great.
And we even, the system does mailing labels. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that this system does. There is a toolbar for those that are brand new. Let me get to that toolbar. If I go to my home page, this toolbar here, which I collapse, is a good toolbar. It will take you step by step. So for example, we covered creating a CMA today. If you click on this, it will go step by step, just like I did, tell you what to do. You enter the property, then you go to step number 2. I mean, it's literally a great online tutorial as you go. And then when you're an expert, you can eliminate this
Mhm.
uh, module so you don't see it, it doesn't take up room. We also have hot sheets on the home page. So, for any town, up to 10 different towns you can include here. So if I want to see what's going on in Mauritius, that's my marketplace, I can see what's going on there immediately. There's a lot of awesome benefits and features to using RPR in addition to your Stratus MLS.
Great. That's very helpful too. I think that's it, Jay. Oops, is there another one? Excellent information. Thank you so much. That's the last comment.
We'll conclude on a good note. Thank you all for being here.
Yeah,
Forward to seeing you in future presentations. And thank you, Mary Ann, for the opportunity.
Yes, thank you for being with us. Just so that you know, Jay is an instructor for LIBOR and he does teach, so you can watch for his name when we have classes through live distance education. And when we get back in the classroom, he'll be there as well. And he was good enough to allow us to record this. So if you go to lirealtor.com/COVID and you scroll all the way down to the bottom, you'll see the recorded webinar there in probably a day. So the webinars are free to LIBOR members. Join us every Wednesday, 12 noon for a helpful webinar. And everyone have a great day. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you all. Have a great day.
Okay.